There are moments in life when all sounds seem to fade away, when the noise of the outside world is no longer strong enough to pull us away from ourselves, and we suddenly realize a simple yet profound truth. Peace is not something we find somewhere far away, but something that has always been present, quietly waiting to be recognized within us. Yet, human beings often go against this. We chase success, recognition, and goals that seem as if they will bring complete happiness. We try to control everything, from circumstances and people to even our own emotions. But the more we try to hold on, the more restless we become. The more we search outside, the further we drift from the stillness within. And along that journey, there are times when we grow tired of pretending to be strong, tired of forcing ourselves to endure what cannot be changed, tired of a heart constantly filled with worries, fears, and regrets. It is in those moments of exhaustion that a door begins to open, not a door leading to another world, but a door leading us back to ourselves. That is the path of awareness. Awareness is not ordinary understanding, not the accumulation of knowledge or philosophy. It is the ability to see things as they are, without judgment, without distortion, without avoidance. When we begin to observe our thoughts, recognize our emotions, and accept them without resistance, a subtle transformation begins to unfold. We are no longer swept away by every wave of emotion. We no longer react unconsciously to every situation. We begin to have space, a quiet gap between what happens and how we respond. Within that space, freedom appears. But awareness alone is not enough. If awareness is light, then compassion is warmth. Without warmth, the path can become cold and rigid. We may see pain clearly, yet not know how to embrace it. We may understand ourselves, yet lack the gentleness needed to heal. Compassion begins with learning to treat ourselves with kindness, not indulgence, but understanding. Not avoidance, but acceptance. Not weakness, but the strength to no longer hurt ourselves. When we learn to listen to our pain without judgment, when we can sit with uncomfortable emotions without rushing to push them away, something miraculous happens. The pain gradually loses its power over us, and from that inner healing, compassion begins to expand outward. We begin to see others differently. We realize that everyone carries invisible wounds. We understand that behind harmful actions often lie and heal pain. From there, judgment begins to dissolve. Anger slowly settles, and a deep, gentle softness begins to grow within the heart. The path of awareness and compassion is not an easy one. It does not offer instant results, nor does it give the feeling of success like external achievements, but it is the only path that leads to a kind of peace that cannot be taken away, because it does not depend on anything outside of our own awakening. Peace does not come when everything becomes perfect. Peace comes when we no longer demand perfection from life. Peace does not come when pain disappears. Peace comes when we no longer resist pain. Peace is not a destination. It is the way we walk through each moment of life. And perhaps the greatest secret of inner peace is not in changing the world, but in learning to see the world and ourselves through the eyes of awareness and the heart of compassion. It is not something distant. It begins right here in this very breath, in the moment you pause and truly listen to yourself. When we have touched the door of awareness, The real journey has only just begun, because seeing does not mean deeply understanding, and deep understanding does not mean transformation. Awareness, if not nurtured, will quickly be swept away by old habits, the reactions that have been deeply ingrained in the mind for a long time. Human beings live most of their lives in unconsciousness, not because they want to, but because they have never been taught how to be aware. A careless word can hurt us for an entire day. An old memory can pull us back into emotions from many years ago. A worrying about the future can make the present feel heavy, even when nothing is actually happening. All of this happens very quickly, almost automatically. But as awareness begins to grow, we gradually realize something important. We are not those thoughts. Thoughts come and go. Emotions arise and then fade away. Only awareness remains, quietly witnessing everything. When we begin to live from this awareness, a new space appears in the mind. Within that space, we are no longer forced to react. We have the power to choose. And this very ability to choose opens an entirely different direction for life. Instead of reacting with anger, we can choose silence and observation. Instead of avoiding sadness, we can sit down and feel it. Instead of rushing to judge others, we can pause and look more deeply. But this does not happen overnight. There will be times when we still lose control. There will be times when we are pulled back into old patterns. There will be times when we forget that we are on the path of awakening. And it is precisely here that compassion becomes extremely important. Without compassion, we easily fall back into criticizing ourselves. We become disappointed that we are still not good enough. We are still weak. We have not changed yet. These thoughts may seem like motivation, but in reality, they are a subtle form of violence we inflict upon ourselves. Compassion helps us see those mistakes with a different perspective, not to justify, but to understand that transformation is a process, not to excuse, but to accept that we are still learning. When we can say to ourselves, "It's okay, I will begin again," that is not weakness, but a profound strength. It is the strength of patience, of gentleness, of a heart that no longer fights against itself. And from that gentleness, something subtle happens. We begin to see others in the same way we see ourselves. We realize that the person to hurt us may also be carrying unhealed pain within them. We understand that others' negative reactions are not always about us, but often expressions of their inner conflicts. This understanding does not make us weaker or more vulnerable. On the contrary, it makes us more stable, because when we are no longer caught in judgment, the mind becomes lighter. When we no longer carry resentment, the heart becomes more open. But compassion does not mean passively accepting everything. There are times when we need to set boundaries. There are times when we need to say no. There are times when we need to walk away to protect our peace. True compassion is not self-sacrifice, but a balance between understanding others and respecting ourselves. It is the ability to keep the heart open without allowing it to be unnecessarily hurt. When awareness and compassion develop together, life begins to change in a very different way. Things that once made us anxious no longer feel as heavy. Conflicts that once kept us awake at night become easier to understand. Fears that once controlled us gradually lose their power, not because life becomes easier, but because we have changed the way we show up in life. We no longer try to control everything. We no longer resist what cannot be changed. We no longer lose ourselves in fleeting things. Instead, we learn to stay with the present, not as a theory, but as a living experience. We feel each breath, each step, each passing moment without rushing. And in that presence, a deeper kind of peace begins to reveal itself. It is not excitement or temporary happiness. It is a stable stillness that does not depend on circumstances, a gentle gratitude for being alive, a deep acceptance of what is, a quiet trust that no matter what happens, we can always return to ourselves. This journey has no clear ending. There is no day when we can say, I am fully enlightened or I have reached perfection. But every small step on this path carries meaning. Each time we pause to observe instead of react, it is a step forward. Each time we choose kindness over judgment, it is a step forward. Each time we return to the breath and realize we are still alive, it is a step forward. And gradually, it is not the world that changes, but the way we experience the world. A morning becomes more peaceful. A conversation becomes more sincere. A moment of silence becomes more profound. All of these simple things, when seen with awareness and nurtured with compassion, become a doorway to inner peace, a peace that is not loud or showy, but deep enough to support us through all the changes of life. And then, as the journey moves through the layers of thoughts, emotions, and endless seeking, we begin to realize something that seems very small, yet holds profound, transformative power. There is nothing we need to become, nothing we need to achieve in order to be at peace, because peace has never been absent. It is only that we have been accustomed to looking outward for too long, accustomed to searching in things that do not belong to us, accustomed to chasing the images of happiness that society paints. And in that busyness, we unintentionally forget the only place that can truly nourish us, our inner world. When awareness has become a natural part of us, when compassion is no longer something we try to cultivate, but a gentle response arising from the heart, we begin to live in a very different way, no longer rushing to prove anything, no longer being pulled into comparisons of gain and loss, no longer feeling a sense of lack even when life is not yet perfect. A quiet sense of fullness appears, not loud, not displayed, but steady like a silent current within. We begin to understand that life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Every joy, every sorrow, every meeting and parting carries its own meaning, not for us to hold on to, but for us to learn how to let go. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is returning everything to its true nature. When we let go of expectations, we feel lighter. When we let go of control, we feel free. When we let go of the rigid ego, we find ourselves more open than ever. And within that openness, compassion knows no limits. It is not only for those we love, it is not only for those who treat us well. It extends even to those who have hurt us, not because they deserve it, but because we no longer wish to carry the burden of resentment. It reaches even strangers, lives we have never known, simply because we realize all of us are going through our own challenges. All of us are seeking little peace in this ever-changing world. And then a deep connection begins to form, not a connection based on words or actions, but a silent empathy between souls. When we look at another person, we no longer see only the outer image. We see untold stories. We see unnamed pain. We see ourselves in them. In that very moment, the boundary between self and others begins to fade. And when there is no longer separation, love becomes as natural as breathing. That is when we begin to truly understand what inner peace is. It is not a fixed state, not a feeling that lasts forever, but the ability to return to awareness, to return to the heart, to return to ourselves whenever we lose our way, because there will still be times when we forget. There will be days when the mind becomes chaotic again. There will be moments when we react from old habits. There will be times when we feel as if we are moving backward instead of forward. But the difference now is we are no longer afraid of those things. We understand that each time we realize we are lost is also a moment of awakening. We understand that this journey does not require perfection, only the sincerity to return. And in this way, with each return, each realization, each letting go, we gradually become lighter, deeper, and freer. Not because life becomes easier, but because we have learned not to resist life. Not because everything always goes smoothly, but because we no longer depend on smoothness to feel at peace. That is the secret, a secret not found in grand things, but in very ordinary moments, when we slow down our breath, when we listen more deeply, when we choose love over judgment. And if you have followed this journey all the way here, perhaps a part of you has already touched that stillness. Even if only for a moment, hold on to it, not by grasping, but by returning to it each day. Allow yourself to slow down. Allow your heart to be gentle. Allow yourself to be who you are, without forcing yourself to become someone else, because it is within that authenticity that peace begins to grow. And if these reflections have touched you, if you feel that something within you has softened, become clearer, leave a comment. It does not need to be perfect, only sincere. Because sometimes a small sharing can become a light for someone else walking in the dark. And if you wish to continue this journey of exploring awareness, compassion, and inner peace, subscribe to the channel, not to follow someone else, but to remind yourself that you are choosing to return, choosing to slow down, and choosing to walk step by step on the path of understanding and love. This journey is not lonely, because somewhere there are always people like you, quietly learning to understand themselves, gently healing, and step by step finding their way back to a peace that no longer depends on anything outside. And perhaps in this very moment, you are already very close to what you have been searching for all along.